Try that one more time. Okay. Thanks for inviting me to speak this evening. So my name is Thatcher Wine. I am a author, creative, and an entrepreneur based in Boulder, Colorado. And the topic I was going to talk about tonight is monotasking. And I wrote a book called 12 Monotasks, Do One Thing at a Time to Do Everything Better. So on that topic, like we just talked about, it's kind of nice if we can all monotask and do one thing at a time while we're all here this evening. So it's kind of hard when you're on a Zoom call these days. I think it's gotten harder over the past couple of years when people can't really see you or call you out on your multitasking. It's a little tricky to just do one thing at a time, but we'll try to do our best tonight. And I'll try to keep it interesting and not tempt you to go off and do something else like Joanna just did. So the way I came to my journey, so what I'll do tonight is like talk about basically the 12 monotasks and the whole concept of how you can use monotasking to be more productive, be more creative, be less stressed, and generally live like a happier, more sustainable life. And the way I'll kind of illustrate the 12 monotasks is through some of my own personal stories. And then at the end, happy to take questions about practical tips, how to implement it in your life and what you do. And inevitably, people always have like different tips and hacks that they've come up with over the years that work for them. So it's always great to share those. So, and feel free to jump in at any time, especially since we're such a small group.
Great.
We were talking about skiing in the Berkshires earlier, and I just remembered my next slide is a photo of me in the Berkshires. So we'll get to that in 1 second. But I, when I started thinking about like what got me, some of the pivotal moments in my life, where it's really become crystal clear to me that it's more fun to do one thing at a time. And how do you really get into doing one thing at a time? A lot of it, like if you think back when you were a kid and you just like went and did something, you didn't really have to think about, do I have permission to do it? Do I have time to do it? Do I have a million other things that I need to do? You just kind of did stuff, right? And for a lot of us, like that feeling is kind of in the past when we were kids, and we don't get to do that as much as we'd like to now. But one of the 12 monotasks in the book is all about play and how as adults we should really play more. And when we do play, when we like go to a concert and just like fully immerse ourselves in it and not stand there thinking about work like I used to, or when I go skiing, I don't like try to get in all my emails on the chairlift in between runs. Like I really just try to, give into it and just be there fully present. So this picture was actually taken at my friend's house at Lanesboro, Massachusetts, not far from where you are, Joanna.
Yeah.
So this was like, right around when I learned to ski. And my parents didn't ski. I grew up in New York City, where I am now. This is not my house. This is at the Mark Hotel. But yeah, it's probably nicer than my house. But I signed up for a school ski trip when I was 9 and got to go outside the city, go skiing for the first time in my life, and just fell in love with it. And to this day, like if I get too stressed out, one of the things I just love to do to just have fun and do one thing at a time is to go skiing. So I kind of look at this picture and think like, that kid knew how to monotask. And hopefully I can reconnect with that. So speaking of growing up in New York City, I grew up above my parents' restaurant. They had a restaurant called the Quilted Giraffe on 2nd Avenue. If you were here in the 80s, it was like one of the hot reservations to get, very hip place to go. And my sister and I would be, doing our homework and hanging out upstairs, and we'd call down on the intercom, daddy pick up, call the kitchen, and we'd order dinner, and they'd cook dinner, and the waiters would bring it upstairs. And my sister and I, we weren't the best monotaskers. We would be watching MTV or something while eating dinner. So, but the thing I do remember about like really monotasking in that era is that nobody brought iPhones or iPads to dinner, right? You didn't like make a reservation 3 months in advance, bring your family and your kids to, one of the fanciest restaurants in the city, and then hand an iPad to your kids and be like, entertain yourself while we have this dinner and have a conversation to ourselves. And nobody was taking pictures of their food, right? People were just experiencing it directly. And it's very different these days. When you go out, like almost everybody's on their phone, having a conversation maybe with each other. And so that's multitasking. We don't often think of it that way. And the other thing is, you might get this beautifully presented food served to you. And then you're like, wait, I got to take a picture before I eat it. And then I got to post it. And I got to see if people liked it. So these things kind of get in the way of things, these tasks, multiple tasks and multitasking. And our phones in particular kind of get in the way of our direct enjoyment and experience of doing one thing at a time. So my parents were super entrepreneurial, and I looked at what they did. It was really creative and fun, and just how they took these ideas and made them real and created a following back before it was a following. And I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur when I grew up. And I got my first big opportunity when I was in my 20s. I had this idea for a customer service portal, a one website where you could go and get service from multiple companies all in one place. Really any company was the idea. So if you had a warranty claim with General Electric, or a compliment for your waiter the night before, or a question about your airplane ticket, you could start at our website. It's called Feedback Direct. And we'd route you to all the different people at these companies. And it was a great experience, raised some venture capital, built a team, built a product. The only problem was I never really went out and talked to the customers like General Electric and asked if they'd pay for what I thought the product was for them, which was bundling access to their customers and their customer data and all that. So I built this whole business and got my entrepreneurial shot back in the internet 1.0 era in the 1990s. And it was all about listening to one type of customer, but I never really took the time to go listen to the business customer and ask them these questions. So we went out of business in 2001. And I kind of took this, the big lesson I took out of it was not that it was a business failure, but that I needed to do a better job of listening. And I was kind of burnt out on technology at that point. And this was 2001, before it was cool to be burnt out on technology, before the iPhone even existed. And what I did at that point was I decided, okay, for the next business or whatever I do, I'm going to do a much better job listening. And what I started doing was selling books. So my main business right now is called Juniper Books. And it's all about curating libraries for clients and doing really fun decorative things with books and making special edition book sets. And so it's a super creative endeavor. But when I started, it was really about selling one book at a time to one customer at a time, and doing kind of the opposite of what I had done in the previous internet business, and really focusing on listening to customers. What did they want? What were they willing to pay for? And what that led to was a really cool creative explosion over the years. They'd ask for things that didn't exist. And I invented these custom book covers that are shown on this slide. So these are all real books with these custom printed book covers. There's a polo player in the upper right and various photographs and images. The one on the lower right is the Gaylord Hotel by the Denver airport. And we do a little bit of this. We do a lot of rare books, and basically just listening to our customers, what do they want for their home or their space? We do work on spas and hotels. We'll do hotel lobbies and hotel rooms, and really just bring a lot of intentionality to the books. So it's super creative and fun. I've had it for 21 years now. And I feel like we're just kind of getting started on the creative potential. But the key to it is that we really listen to customers and really kind of hear what they're saying and what they're not saying, and just do things one at a time, whatever we're doing. So things had been going really well with the business for a while. And then in 2016, about 6 years ago, I went through kind of my first of a few interesting health challenges, I would say. I had built this whole business that was based on seeing, but I was having trouble actually seeing. And the main reason for that is that it turned out I had a spinal fluid leak. I had the surgery for a hole in my head in 2016, where they patched up the hole above my left eye. And they said, don't lift anything over 10 pounds for a few months. but you should, make a full recovery, don't blow your nose, stuff like that. That's TMI. But so I was like, okay, well, that's a little bit of a pain that I can't lift the books, but if it gets rid of the headaches that I was having for a few years before that, then hopefully I make a full recovery. It took about a year for me to get my eyesight back, my left eye. I couldn't really read books or do the visual work that I need to do for the business. And it gave me this like newfound appreciation for seeing and what happens when it's taken away from us. And what tends to happen in our lives is like we're just overstimulated by everything we see. Back in the 1970s, we used to see about 500 ads a day, just like billboards, going past us, and TV ads that came up one at a time. Now we see 10,000 ads a day. And most of them are subliminal, like we don't even know that they're ads and that we're seeing them. They're popping up all over the place on the different devices that we use. So if on the one hand you take, seeing too much stuff, and on the other hand, seeing not enough stuff, whether that's due to a physical limitation or something else, I think our eyes are like really the way that we perceive the world. And if we can develop the control over seeing one thing at a time, processing it, giving it time, and then moving on to the next thing, we can really, start to slow things down and see what we want to see. Just do a better job of seeing things that are close to us and far away, and really using it, for whatever we need to do in our careers and in our hobbies and our home life. So that I mentioned that was the first of a few medical challenges that I'd gone through a few years ago. The second one was cancer. So no sooner had I recovered from the hole in my head surgery, then I had a different pain in my neck that eventually led to getting a diagnosis for non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And I was super healthy. This was just a few years ago and feeling good. So it kind of came out of nowhere. And I had to go through 600 hours of chemotherapy. And I had a particular kind of chemo in my chest, particular kind of cancer in my chest that required this really strong chemo regimen. And, when you're going through cancer or any sort of health challenge, like a lot of times you have time to think while you're kind of going through something difficult. And for me, and for a lot of people, like you think about, gosh, what am I going to do when I am healthy? This, has caused me to, create a bucket list or think about things that matter to me or what I really want to do on the other side of this. And for me, I was never like really a bucket list person. I wasn't going to emerge from it and be like, I want to jump out of an airplane or go to Bali or something. For me, it was really about like three things. One was I have two teenagers, and one was being like going from being a good parent to being a really great parent, being really present in their lives. Because I, had come close to losing everything and not being around for them. So I really gave me a new appreciation for the things that matter in life and the people that matter. The second thing was I resolved, I wasn't just going to sell other people's books. I was going to write my own. So the 12 Monotasks is actually my second book. My first book was about home libraries and how to design and curate your own home library and basically do what Juniper Books does, on your own shelves, and how to think about it. And the third thing was really related to books and kind of thinking about, well, why have I had this business, Juniper Books, for so many years, and what does it do for the world? And I think, I was looking for kind of the meaning in it all, and it all kind of came clear to me one night, like a few months after going through cancer treatment. And the other thing that I threw on top of those medical issues was going through a divorce pretty soon after cancer. So I kind of had all these like crazy, off the charts, distracting experiences all at once. And there's one night where my daughter was super stressed out, super anxious. She didn't want to do her homework. She was really upset about the spring trip coming up. She didn't want to go to school. She didn't want to go to bed. And I tried all the things as a parent that we do to calm her down. Nothing worked. And finally I said, well, I know you have to read your book as an assignment. Why don't I just read to you? And I hadn't done that in a few years. And she said, okay. So I basically put down all the work I had to do, which by that point had really accumulated. So going through cancer, going through the hole in my head, going through the divorce, like my reaction to a lot of that in terms of my work was like, gosh, I've got to make up for all this lost time, right? I got to like do twice as much work, 3 times as much work. I got to stay up later, get up earlier, outwork everybody else, get back to where I wanted to be. And after all that lost time, and I was like, okay, I'm just going to read to you. I'm not going to do my work tonight. And, something kind of magical happened when I started reading to her. She paid full attention. She listened to me. And, I paid full attention to reading a book. And when you read a printed book, especially, like, you can't do anything else besides read that book. You have to just give your attention to one thing at a time. Otherwise, you have to go back and repeat it. You can kind of pretend to flip the pages, but it doesn't work. So something kind of magical happened when I read to Jasmine, my daughter, that, her stress level came down, she focused, and the same thing happened to me. And she ended up getting a great night's sleep, and I did as well. And we repeated that process until we were finished with the book, and then we started another one. And I kind of realized, like, that's the meaning in what I do, like selling books and encouraging people to read and have books in their homes is about, I started to make this connection to monotasking. And, maybe that's what's really good for our brains. And in the world we live in that's super distracting and kind of overwhelming, overstimulating, books can be this refuge. And then I started thinking about, well, what if I took the same level of focus to other things in life that I took to reading to my daughter? So the next day when she was at school, I went for a walk with my dog, and I did something revolutionary. I left my phone at home. And like, who goes for a walk these days, leaves their phone at home? It's like crazy, right? Something could happen. Somebody might need to reach you. But I calculated the risk, and I was like, I'm gonna go out for 20 minutes. I can do this. Nothing happened. The world didn't end. And I started noticing things on my walk that I didn't notice before, because I was either buried in my phone or listening to music or making a call. And then when I got back from the walk, I actually left my dog in the apartment, and I went out for a walk without my dog, because I was like, maybe I can take one more task away and just truly monotask my walk. And so between seeing things that I'd never seen before, hearing sounds, taking a different route, smelling smells I'd never smelled before, like in the neighborhood, bakeries and stuff. It was just a totally different experience to like have that heightened awareness. And then that night I thought, what if I could take that same level of focus and actually bring it to sleeping? Would that work? Would I get a better night's sleep? And it didn't work immediately. But I started playing around with like, how can I really prepare to get the best night's sleep possible throughout the day? Like setting up my bed, I create this pillow for it with my pillows to really wedge myself in. That's one of my tips. The other thing is, like, instead of just kind of working up until the last second and then collapsing in exhaustion or worrying, thinking about all the things I have to do the next day until I fall asleep, like, it just doesn't work for me or for a lot of people. So I really thought about it in terms of monotasking terms versus multitasking. Could I just give all my attention to sleeping? And then during the night, if I wake up, like, could I resist the urge to look at my phone? Because that just, takes you out of sleep and, might get you agitated, or you have something to do. You're just kind of, I'm gonna just respond to this one thing and then go back to sleep. It never ends up being that way. And even in the morning, I've started reaching for a book instead of my phone, and starting the day with reading for 20 minutes instead of scrolling through social media and seeing what I missed. I started to put all these things together, and I thought, I'm kind of onto something as far as monotasking. And, if I've got 3 of them down, reading, walking, and sleeping, that seems like the start of a good book and some useful tips for other people. And then I started to look at, like, what are the other things that I do throughout my day or my week, and thought back on some of those formative experiences, like playing, like listening, like eating, and started noticing, kind of the difference between monotasking and multitasking everywhere. And so when I started thinking about it in terms of a book, I also thought, okay, well, my personal experience is great. It's helpful. It's illustrative, but I need to learn a little bit more about the neuroscience here. I need to learn about, am I the only one who benefits from doing one thing at a time? And what I found, a few things that I found that were interesting. One is that, everybody thinks they can multitask, but only 2% of the population can actually multitask. And in that definition, it was like two cognitive tasks at the same time. So listening in a conversation while writing a presentation or something on that level, not folding laundry and listening to a podcast. Most people can do that. So the 2% of people that can actually multitask are called supertaskers. But 2% is a very small number, right? So odds are that we're all in the other 98%, and that's okay. I think it's okay to be aware of the fact that like our brains are not made to multitask and do two things at the same time. A few of the other things I learned, one is that when studies are done on productivity with multitasking, two things happen. So when you try to give people multiple things to do at a time, they basically get a bottleneck in their brains, and they make more mistakes when they're multitasking versus monotasking, and things take longer. So we're all under this impression that like, I have so much to do, I better do more than one thing at a time so I can get it done. But it takes longer. So we're not doing ourselves a service. And the last thing is that when we think we're multitasking, what we're actually doing is task switching. So we're going from one thing to another. So, I'm on a phone call, and then, I got to get back to my presentation, then an email comes in and I got to respond to that. So, then my kids want to know what we're having for lunch or something. So all these things are happening seemingly simultaneously, but we're actually switching from task to task, going back and forth and back and forth. And with the studies that have been done, when you have two cognitive heavy tasks, it takes an average of 23 minutes for someone to switch from one task to another. That 23 minutes is what it takes to kind of understand the context of what you're doing. Where were you in the task? What are you trying to accomplish here? Doing, whatever you need to do basically to go from one thing to a different thing. And because we generally don't give ourselves 23 minutes in between tasks, we try to like just go back and forth all the time. We're creating a lot of stress on our brains. And sometimes we just don't know where it comes from, because all the things we might be doing are great. Like we're having fun, it's great for our career, it's, creative, it's successful, whatever. But when we're rushing around, going back and forth all the time, it still creates the stress, no matter how rewarding it is. So those are some of the things I learned, when I really started researching the book and putting together the 12 monotasks and some stories and some kind of data for each chapter. One of the chapters in the book that I wanted to include was all about texting and driving. So everything I've talked to date, is more about like productivity and creativity, family life, things like that. I started thinking about like, why, if there's a multitask that could actually kill you or kill other people, like why do people do it? Like why do we feel the need to text and drive? My publisher talked me down a little bit, and they were like, not everybody has a car, especially in New York. But I was like, but everybody, can get hit by a car and a texting driver. But they said, why don't we broaden it out and make it more about, getting there, like all sorts of travel and journeys. And I'm really glad we did, because I think at this moment in the pandemic, as people are like reemerging and traveling again, it's like, it's something in itself that we can appreciate and give our full attention to. It's not like we just should be on our phones, even while we're taking a plane or a bus or train or whatever, to where we're going. Like there's something about traveling and talking to strangers and seeing everything out the window and just the experience of getting from one place to another that's special, even if you're not the driver on your phone. So that chapter is really about how do you monotask, not only to keep other people and yourself safe, but to like really appreciate everything in life and just the human experience of and our capacity to travel and experience new things. So the 12th monotasks, and these aren't in order that they're in the book, is about teaching. And even though I'm not a professional teacher, and I feel when I looked around at how much we learn from other people and how much we can teach other people, just little things that we don't even know we're teaching them, just being a good role model. and also how like the experience of thinking about how to teach something really helps you slow down, helps you break things into steps and develop an appreciation for the people who are good teachers. So that chapter was really all about, how do you teachers and non-teachers alike, how do you like just slow down the process and figure out what you learn, what you know, how you can teach it to someone else so that they can learn. And it's been really fun as I've gone around like talking a little bit more about monotasking and how people can adapt it and apply it in their own lives. It's been a fun thing for me to teach, and hopefully, improve upon with each opportunity. So one of the fundamental concepts in the book is about monotasking muscles. And the basic idea is that, if all the things that we do in our lives right now are about basically encourage us to multitask and to fragment our attention into smaller and smaller pieces, whether it's TikTok or Instagram or just the way we've set up our businesses and interactions with people. We need to kind of strengthen our ability to do the opposite of that. So we need to kind of counterbalance all the multitasking with monotasking. And once you do things one at a time and you do more of them, the great thing is like you can just go about your daily life, do things like walking, creating, learning. And if you do them with your full attention instead of fragmented attention, you just get better and better and stronger at monotasking. And then you can apply your monotasking muscles wherever you want. So the great thing about monotasking is you can do it anywhere, anytime, with any task. And then you can just choose to use it wherever you want to. So at work, you might use your monotasking muscles to be more productive, to get more done in less time. At home, you might use it to, get a better night's sleep. In your relationships, you might use it to be more connected, to put your phones away and really just like connect with other people and listen to them, and hear things that you weren't hearing before when you weren't present. In your hobbies, you can apply your monotasking muscles to go have an awesome time skiing or go, have a great time at a concert. And then to causes you care about, you can really think about and be fully present in things instead of just being partially present, and trusting other people to do the work. Like if there's something you care about, you can fully monotask it. And so, the way I think about it is that pretty much with everything in life, you always have two choices. You can, you can either multitask with partial attention, but you always have a choice of whether multitask with partial attention or monotask with your full attention. So this awareness is really key and what's made all the difference in my life and to a lot of other people. And so basically anything you're doing, you could say, am I monotasking this? Is it something I need to do, something I want to do, something I want to do a good job at? Then I'm going to monotask it. Or, if it's the end of the day, you're exhausted, you want to sit on the couch, have dinner while watching TV, chatting with a friend, then you can multitask it. So it's not about like only doing one all the time, only multitasking or monotasking. It's really about that awareness and about that choice that you have the power to make. And I always say like it's your choice. It's not up to Facebook or social media and big tech and all that to distract you all the time. Like if you recognize that you have the ability to make this choice and then hopefully strengthen your monotasking muscles over time, you'll be able to get done what you want to do and what you need to do, be more present, and be able to recognize distractions and resist them when you want to. So that's what monotasking is all about. If you want to learn more, you're welcome to email me. Or I have a website called monotasking.tips, which has some more information. And the book is available from Juniper Books if you want a signed copy, or Amazon or your local bookseller. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
That was really good, Thatcher.
Yes, thank
Thanks.
you.
And totally fascinating. I mean, on a bunch of different levels. Just as someone who multitasks all the time, I think that there's some other thing that's also happening. So like if you think about what meditation is, right? Like your ability to completely slow your mind down and pay it. And it's not really paying attention to anything but like one thought or your breath, right? But then you can go to a different place. And so when you're talking about some of the effects that you have with the monotasking, I'm thinking about when I'm running or I'm going to yoga, right? Because those are the times where I am definitely not doing anything. I'm definitely not doing anything else, right? I'm running, I'm doing yoga, but I'm always somewhere else, right? Like those are the times where I've occupied my body, right? So that I can really come to this place of calm or I don't know another word, right, to describe it, but some place where you are, I think some of what it is that you're also describing.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you mentioned meditation. So in all of those personal ways that you arrive at it. So it is highly related to mindfulness and meditation.
Yeah.
And I think what I decided with the book is, even though I've been into like yoga and mindfulness meditation for a few decades, what I saw in other people is that there's like it bumps up against some people thinking it's too spiritual or it's too Eastern or it's too, conflicts with their other beliefs or something, or it's too liberal or whatever their excuse might be. I wanted to make it like very secular, the language in the book, and that it's not, are you meditating enough? Do you need to go on a retreat? No, it's just like, are you doing more than one thing at a time?
Right.
Or, are you doing 6 things at a time, or can you do one? Do you have something you need? Yeah.
I
Do you
like
have something you need to do? Go ahead.
I like it because, well, I'm also a meditation teacher, but one of the things I'm observing is that people resist meditation because they perceive it as hard. And what you're doing with the language that you're using is making it less hard.
There's the difficulty aspect, and then there's also like the separateness that I've seen, whereas people are like, oh, I'm just gonna like do all this stuff like that's terrible for me because I'm gonna meditate on Saturday. Or go to yoga or take a vacation once a year. Then
That's a
so I wanted to make
balancing
it
of the scales.
yeah, so I wanted to make it very like integrated into your life all the time if you want to, so you don't have to go somewhere or wait. You could just practice it at your work or at home.
Yeah, you're making it accessible,
Mm-hmm.
but you're not choosing a label that is off-putting, right? Because that is,
Right.
Having been in this wellness space for 30 years, like meditation is always held up as like the holy grail. Like if you can meditate, everything else in your life is going to be magically more better, easier, right? And the reality is that sets up such a dichotomy of what the actual experience is that you're disappointed by meditating.
Right.
Right. So you kind of just stripped that away and said, we're going to call it something really simple, monotasking, the idea of doing one thing at a time. And by doing that, essentially, you're going to get to that state anyway.
Yeah.
So that's pretty
exactly.
cool. I'm very impressed.
Thatcher, hi, I'm Lori Keynes. I really enjoyed that focus. I'm really sorry for all you went through. That's just what a hard time. Like, I can't believe that. And you seem like, you've come to some resolutions or you've dealt with it, but just putting it into my world here, I'm a sales rep and I have an office that has a storefront. And so part of the way I pay for the office rent is by selling products in the store. But I've gone back and forth with this conflict as to whether to have office time and have the store closed, or to work in the office and then when someone comes in to get up and to, help them and service them and then get. And so I've gone back and forth because I thought, well, it's a very small neighborhood. It's not very crowded during the week. And I just thought, well, if someone's there and they want to come in and then I can make a sale and then helps the rent. But then I just found it makes me crazy because I can't do the office work, which is another half of my income. So I've had the store like 6 years now, and I've gone back and forth. And I think I'm back to the point, to your point, because I'm closed for 3 days, and that's when I'm really concentrating on the office work and the paperwork. And then when the store is open, I do other tasks that I can multitask, like I can steam clothing and greet people, and make sales. But I think that, you're emphasizing just that fact. You can't really get anything done well if you're multitasking too much. So good points.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing all that. I mean, I think a lot like in our world, we've set up, to both encourage, enable, and glorify multitasking to a large extent. A lot of like job descriptions are, written, are you a great multitasker? Multitasking skills desired. And then people put on their resume, I can multitask and great multitasker. And then, a lot of being an entrepreneur, like you talked about, is about wearing a lot of different hats. Like you don't really have a choice not to do those
Right.
things, to talk to customers or do the billing or, all the other things. So part of it's just like recognizing our own limitations and that we're not supposed to necessarily be good at multitasking and switching from one thing to another seamlessly. And then coming up with the strategies that work for us, whether that's time blocking, which it sounds like a form of which you do, setting aside certain times and days to do one thing at a time. And then recognizing like it's okay to not be good at, jumping into that one thing to another if a customer comes in. You shouldn't be too hard on yourself. And it's like a meditation practice, like just let it go. Like if it stresses you out or you don't know where you were, and then coming up with a strategy to basically, batch those things together, maybe a little bit better. And it's different for different people. So it's not like a one size fits all. Some people, maybe they're super taskers. They can switch from one thing to another and they should like handle, 5 customer service phone calls at a time. And that's their skill. And that's okay. But the other 98% of people, try to throw them into it. They're not going to excel at it.
Yeah.
And it's going to stress them out and burn them out really quickly.
Yeah, I have employees on the weekends when I give them some tasks to do. And if it's a downtime, I notice that some handle it better than others. But, it's like, it's okay, just do the sales. I can pick up the other stuff the other time. Yeah, but thank you.
Anybody else want to share or comment? All right. I feel very grateful that we got to be connected to you, Thatcher.
Yeah, thank you. Do you actually, I have a question, since
Sure.
everyone's in the spa and wellness industry. Do you feel like there's extra pressure to kind of look like you're always staying calm? You're not like, just, thrown for a loop by your phone or by, a customer that's upset or something. Like what are your strategies for?
Yes.
And yeah.
100%. Yeah. Doggone water. Yeah.
Any tips or hacks or anything?
Oh,
Amelia, your audio's still not working.
she probably has some good ones.
You're referring, oh, I did have one. You're referring to my duck slide? Or is that actually a saying? I know it'll take me. I would have to multitask pulling it up. But there's a New Yorker cartoon that I love. Of there's like a duck in Central Park or something, and it's like the caption's like, on the surface it seems like the ducks, got it all together. It's working on like a presentation, and then it says, but under the water, it's frantically checking social media, and like checking its likes and its followers and stuff. So. Yeah, I mean, I think like there's a lot of pressure to make it seem like we can do lots of different things at once. And that, throw on, like it was hard enough before all this technology. And then you throw on all the tech and social media and just keeping up with everything. And it's a lot. And our phones like do just enough to make us think we're good at it and we can do it. But, the future's only going to be more distracting. It's just going to be more tech, more apps, more notifications. So we got to figure this out now so we can make our ways into the future. So.
Right. I also think there's a little bit of a double standard, right? I think that, women are expected to be better multitaskers than men. And, I think that that's kind of been a long-standing bias because we were traditionally the home makers and the child rearers, and that although a lot of that has changed, the level of expectation and the stereotype still exists.
Yeah. So,
So I like that you're a man
well,
talking about this.
here's that slide I was referring to.
Yeah.
Okay, whoops. Anyway, yeah, no, I get that question, that comment a fair amount, that, about, is there like a gender-based difference? Are women better at multitasking, basically? And, my response is like, it's just because somebody's better or worse at something that's not good for us doesn't mean we should expect them to do it. So there has, for thousands of years, there's been a lot more pressure on women to multitask, to, do everything in family and work and, cooking and household stuff, and make it seem like it's no big deal also. It's kind of like we're talking about, but just making it look like you're calm and you can handle it all. But I don't think that's fair. I mean, I think everybody deserves the right to do one thing at a time, and to, do things with focused attention, and give your full attention to your kids, and give your full attention to your career. And, so there's just like a little bit of societal expectation that, if one gender can do it, they should do it. But I don't think that's appropriate. So I think, I think I'd like to shift the way that people talk about it, and the way people talk about their own skills, and ask what other people's skills are, and I just expect that, one group of people will do it because historically they have.
Mhm. Mhm. I think that's a really good point. Thank you. Thank you. All right, so how
Cool. Well,
can
thank you for
we-
having me. Yeah.
You're very welcome. I was going to say, how can we offer your book to our greater audience? Do you have a place where you directly sell it?
I do. So I can either follow up with links, or I can put it here, or
Yeah. No, let's follow up.
No.
And what we can
Yeah.
do, Dara and I can send out an e-blast where there's a link to buy the book in the e-blast. Encourage
Great.
people to go back and do that. And
I would.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would love that, and love to. I mean, it does seem like the kind of book that would be, do well in a spa wellness store, and also, been doing more eats and stuff that, and retreats and things. So if there's an opportunity to talk about that, and having me appear at location, that would be great. And then Juniper Books, I talked a little bit about it, but since we do so much work with hotels, and really trying to like combine space and style with the intentionality of certain titles and stuff, I'll put some thoughts into an email about that as well. So maybe it can be helpful to members there.
That would be great. I'd love to talk with you a little bit about that as well. So, I mean, because some of the designs you showed are really amazing.
Mm-hmm.
But then what happens if people want to take out one of the books? Are they allowed
so they're
to
all
touch it?
like, they are allowed to touch it. They're all like ordered, they have a number on them if they make up a mural. So most that slide was just like, yeah, really eye-catching murals. Some things are just individual books. So we've done things like, we did some books recently for the Ojai Valley Inn. I think they're part of the organization. And did like health and wellness books for all the rooms. So there's some things we do like that are more just reading books that also have a certain aesthetic, where we'll match the color palette of the property, or the vibe of the room. And yeah, so we can really customize everything. It's super fun, and kind of think about just what the goal is, what sort of frame of mind, or what healthy habits are we trying to create.
Okay, Are you
And
gonna
other
be
times it's just purely like the wow factor of we need a really cool installation in the lobby.
Are you going to be on the East Coast for a while?
This trip is just till Saturday, but I'm here quite often. So happy to try to find opportunities to visit in person. Yeah,
All right. Well, I will be in touch with you.
that sounds great. So nice meeting all of you.
Thank you all
Thank
for
you for
coming.
the invite, Amelia.
It's great. Thank you, Amelia.
Thank
That was
you.
really special. I appreciate that.
Lovely.
Thank you. And I appreciate all the good questions.